Hey, it's Heidi Dawson, and this is Wednesday Wisdom, where I interview wildly successful people from across the world, where we get an inside view into what their daily life looks like. Success leaves clues, and on Wednesdays, we're finding them. Join me now for the latest wildly successful interview. Hi, guys. Welcome to the 79th episode of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. And welcome to Wednesday Wisdom. Today, I'm interviewing a really interesting guy who's done just so much. He's been wildly successful in business. He started the #1 hostel chain in Asia and is currently the CEO of Slumber Hostel Group and also Destination Eats. He's a member of the Forbes Business Council. He's known as a business turnaround expert. And on top of that, he's an ultra marathon runner and he's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, which in my opinion alone makes him super cool and totally brave. So let me introduce you to Edmund Lowman.
Hey, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So tell us a little bit about what you do now on top of all those cool things I just listed, which are amazing in themselves.
So I'm, as you correctly stated, I founded a company called Slumber Party. Slumber Party about two and a half years ago. Part of it was acquired by another company called Destination Group. Destination Group has 3 different divisions. One is called Destination Resorts, which is we have branded resorts like Novotel, Swiss Hotel, 4 Points by Sheraton, like name branded hotels. Another division is called Destination Eats, which is we own the master franchise rights for Hooters for all of Asia. We own 2 Hard Rock cafes. We have Big Boy. I don't know if you know Big Boy Burger from Minnesota and the West Coast. We have the master franchise for Big Boy Burger for all of Asia. And then we have about 10 or 15 other like ghost kitchen and restaurant brands. And then the third side of the business is called Destination Capital, where we invest in other acquiring assets, hotel assets. So currently I'm the CEO of Slumber Party, but as well Destination Eats. So as I said, Destination Eats is Hooters, Hard Rock, Big Boy, Slumber Party. So
wow, that's amazing.
So a little bit of hospitality, or a little bit of hotel and hostel, and a little bit of F&B, a little bit of everything.
That's awesome. All right. So I have a couple questions I ask everybody because I think we learn from others, watching others be successful. So do you have a set morning routine that you can share with us?
I do not. It's funny. A lot of people talk about routines and you got to get in your routine. And I guess that's good, man. I wish I could say I did have one. I guess, or maybe I do have one. I don't realize I have one. I don't know. I mean, I'm usually up. I guess what I would say is I'm usually up by around between 5 a.m. and 6 a.m. I don't set an alarm. So anytime between 5 and 6 a.m. I get up. And then usually the first thing I do is I'll go exercise. So 6 or 6:30, I'll go exercise for an hour. Once I get back from my exercise, I usually hang out. I have a 3-year-old daughter. So I'll hang out with my daughter for like 30 minutes to an hour, like helping my wife with her, like take a shower, brush her teeth, have breakfast, just hang out with my daughter. Cause that's the really the morning is the most quality time I kind of get with her. By the time I get home, I'm usually destroyed. And then I'm usually at the office by 9:30 at the latest, depending, let's say a different way. I'm usually on meetings by 9 or 9:30 at the latest. It just depends where I am because I kind of split my time between 2 cities.
Okay.
So if I'm in Bangkok, where I am now, usually I go in the office really early because I'll just exercise and go straight to the office. I usually get there around 7 or 7:30. And when I'm in the other town where I live, Krabi, because my wife and kid are with me there, I usually start work a bit later, like between 9 and 10. So
awesome. So
I guess I do have a routine. I have more of an evening routine than a morning routine.
Okay, so then I want to hear that because I'm hearing more and more about that. Like having an evening routine is just as important as your morning routine. So tell us about that. What is your evening routine then?
I would say generally by 8 or 9 p.m. I try to switch off electronics and either read. I'm not so stringent on what it is, but it's either read, meditate or journal. So just like I keep a daily journal, just write about whatever feelings or what's happened during the day or things I'm excited about or not excited about or whatever. I just write stuff down in it.
Okay.
So I'm pretty good about keeping to that routine of like no electronics for like an hour before bed and journaling, meditating, or reading. So that I'm pretty good about.
Awesome. Yeah. So does that kind of works into our next question? Does that help you sleep? Like, is that for sleep purposes? How many hours do you sleep? Let's start there.
Well, also the other thing I was going to add, just to throw into the routine thing, is also I do a thing on Sunday, which is awesome. Is on Sundays, no electronics whatsoever.
Okay.
So from Saturday at midnight until Monday morning, no computer, no phone, not even Apple Watch, anything that has a screen on it, I don't touch for 24 hours. And I do that every Sunday. And if you've never tried it, try it. It's difficult, but man, it makes you very aware of how much you use your phone. And by Monday, you just feel really refreshed, for me at least.
Yeah, I really love that because for me, when I go, I've started kind of somewhat not doing the Sunday thing, but I'll leave my phone places. So I'll just, if I go to dinner or if I'm going to lunch or if I'm spending time with my husband, I just leave my phone away because I know how addicted it can be. And so I always kind of like checking it, so awesome. So then your evening routine is almost sort of what a lot of people try to do in the morning, but I'm hearing that that's super important. So how many hours a night do you
sleep? I try really hard to get 8, to be honest. I try hard to get 8.
Yeah.
I would say it probably ranges between 6.5 to, if I had to average it out, I'd probably say it's 7. And it probably varies between 6.5 to 7.5. But I try to make sure that at least 8 hours before I have to be awake, that I'm in bed.
Okay. Yeah, that's
so for me, that's usually 10 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Yeah. Okay. That's kind of exactly almost like what my time frame is, which makes me very happy. Like last night I knew I had this early appointment because you're in Bangkok. So you're like 7:30 at night and I'm 7:30 in the morning. So usually I don't start my morning that early. I get up early, but I usually don't start like meetings until usually after I exercise. So I knew I had to go to sleep early and get a good night's sleep. And so I did what you were talking about, is kind of did not try to look at my phone late and and all the good stuff to get sleep. So, okay, awesome. Now, do you, is there one thing, you've been very successful in so many things, but is there one thing you can share with us?
Mildly successful.
Mildly, that's not fair to
say. Let's not oversell it.
Okay, so here's my whole thing on wildly successful.
Sorry, I've been wildly successful.
Yes.
I'm screwing up the whole show.
Everything up.
I've been wildly successful.
Actually, it's perfect because what my husband said to me was, he was like, we were talking about, I'm always like, okay, I want to do this and I want to do that. And he said, Hey, you've been successful at so much in your life. And I said, I've been mildly successful, but I really want to be wildly successful. And so
mildly successful is what keeps you cool.
Yes, exactly. So
keeps you grounded.
I'm going to say just the fact that you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro makes you, in my mind, wildly successful, because we have to talk about that, but not yet.
So there's a good story behind that. So let's talk about it. I've got a great story behind that whole thing.
Okay, awesome. I can't wait. Let's talk about just real quick what you feel has attributed to your success. Like, is there one thing that you can think of that's attributed?
Persistence.
Yeah.
Persistence. Persistence, perseverance. Those two things, persistence and perseverance. My grandfather always says about me, my grandfather is 99, still works, runs his company, total badass. And he always says to me, he's like, of all the grandkids, I never worry about you, because you're the guy who, like, you can get kicked in the stomach, thrown off the building, hit by the car, and you just keep getting back up. He's like, you just refuse to give up. And that's your talent in life, is that you just won't give up. He's like, where a lot of people would just say, whatever, like throw in the towel. He's like, you just never do. And he's like, and because of that, you won't ever not be successful. You won't ever not be self-sufficient, because you just don't allow yourself to get kicked down too long or knocked down too long.
I love that, because so many times you see really talented people and not, that give up there because like one kick and they're down. And then you see people who aren't as talented, but they never give up. And I love that. And I agree with you wholeheartedly, like persistence and perseverance. If that is the key to success in a lot of ways, is just not giving up, because it's easy. Sometimes you're kind of like, I know when I started my podcast, I was like, okay, like 2 people listened, and then, and you just, sometimes you can get.
Sounds like my podcast. We must have the same subscribers.
The 2 of them. But the problem was the 2 of them were like my sister and my husband at the
My brother and sister. Yeah.
There you go. Okay. All right. So now it's growing and it's growing. And as you watch it, you're like, man, if I'd have given up back, when I was listening to 2, or when 2 people were listening, I would have never been where I am right now. So, okay. And so now you've been successful in business, and now you invest in them as well. How do you decide like what business will be successful and what you would invest in? And then also, can you give like a entrepreneur a tip for just starting out in business?
Yeah, so we have a venture fund that's called Alpha Founders. So anyone who is looking for we do very early stage investments. So usually early stage tech, disruptive technology. We have done some F&B stuff, but mostly really early stage. We like to take the big risk, and the type of stuff we invest in, or the type of what makes us decide whether a business will be successful or not? That was the question. I would say a lot of times we invest in people more than the business. So we're looking for a person that we believe will be able to stand up to the stress and the gunfire of a round A or Series A or Series B funding. So when you're dealing with that kind of funding, you're going up with experts in finance, ex McKinsey, ex Grant Thornton, consultants that are just the weapons of consultants and investment bankers and financial analysts, business development people. Like the best of the best are the people that are coming to make these after we make the deal in the beginning. The next group of people that will come and invest and monetize my investment, meaning get me out or allowing me to exit. This second round of funding is incredibly difficult, and they're going to put that CEO to the test.
Okay.
So we're really looking for a CEO that we believe, one, in the product, but I think more than anything, we believe in the person and their ability to run the company and also, make it through that next round of capital raising.
So strength of the human, the person, not just the product.
Absolutely.
Products, but if it's run by someone.
I would say that equally as important.
Okay. All right. Awesome. Now you, just to clear something up, and this may show my, the amount of knowledge I have on this, you said a couple times F&B.
Oh, food and beverage.
Food and beverage. Okay. I just wanted to, cause you're more hospitality.
Sorry.
You understood, but I was kind of like, okay, I want to clear that up of what that is. Food and beverage. Okay.
No, I'm glad you asked, because I just assume everyone knows what that's like, because, whatever, you probably know way more about podcasting than I do. You can say stuff that I have no clue about.
Well, I'm an interior designer by trade, so a lot of times I'll say things and.
Oh man, I wish I wanted to be an interior designer.
Yeah.
I'm the gayest straight man on the planet.
Well, you do a lot of fashion and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love fashion. I love Taylor Swift. I love interior design. I always tell this to all my friends, like whenever they're like, they'll introduce me to a friend. Last night I was out at the party and this gay guy's like, oh, I love the way you're dressed. I was like, dude, I am the gayest straight man on the planet. Like everything that you love, I can tell you right now, I probably love too.
That's awesome. I think that's awesome. I love that. We could probably talk for hours about all that stuff, but we don't have a lot of time. I wish we did. Maybe we do this again. Okay, so on top of all the success you've had in business, you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, and I know this is kind of like I wanted to get to this. You're kind of a hero for that. So I need to know all about that. Like what?
Well, the story. The climbing of Mount Kilimanjaro, I think, in general, is it kind of depends on how you do it. There's easy ways to do it and there's hard ways to do it. We did the hard way. But what makes the story what makes the story a bit more ridiculous than besides the fact of just climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, which was already a challenge enough in itself, was the day before climbing Mount Kilimanjaro, I'd gotten to I want to say it's Arusha, if I remember, Arusha, Africa.
Okay.
The day before my buddy was coming 24 hours later, and then he was getting off the plane, and basically we were driving to base camp and we were leaving. So the day before I had a free day, and I was like, well, maybe I'll go do something. So these guys took me for a hike, as if I needed to do more hiking.
Of course, yeah. Why not hike before you're going to do this huge thing?
Yeah, exactly what I needed to do. And while I was on that hike, we went to a waterfall, and I was going to go take a picture in this waterfall, and I stepped on a rock, I slipped, and I dislocated my right shoulder. So here I am, hour and a half into the middle of jungle town, Africa, and about an hour and a half away from where we had driven to come to this hike. And so I have to hike an hour and a half back out of the jungle first with a dislocated shoulder. And then I have to drive an hour and a half down a bumpy road with a dislocated shoulder. And if you've never had a dislocated shoulder, what I can tell you is this: I in my life have had I had a heart problem at one point, like 3 years ago. I had arterial fibrillation. That was scary. I've broken bones. That was painful. Dislocating your shoulder, it doesn't sound that bad. It is the most painful thing I've ever experienced in my life. Because
pop it back in.
Yeah, well, you have to go get it popped in. But what happens is, because it's out of joint and your arms moving around and such. My doctor friend explains to me, but basically it's all your nerves and stuff are just firing like crazy. So you go into shock. So that's what happened. I started going into shock. I was like this, shaking for this hour and a half drive. Then we had to go to 2 hospitals. I couldn't find a hospital that knew how to put his shoulder back in. And finally went to this, basically, for lack of a better word, mud hut in the middle of nowhere. And this doctor's like, oh yeah, I can do it. He's like, but I need you to give me $5 for ketamine, because you're definitely not going to want to be sober during this. Let me go get some ketamine for you. So I was like, all right. So I give this doctor $5. He injects me with ketamine. I wake up, and next thing you know, I've got my shoulder in a sling, and I'm okay. And the next day I went and hiked Mount Kilimanjaro with my shoulder in a sling.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so that is crazy.
Ridiculous story.
Yeah, that is crazy. Like, no, normal human beings probably wouldn't have done any of that. But
it didn't seem ridiculous at the time. And in all fairness, the buddy that I went hiking with, or went climbing with, he was a doctor. And had he not been there, I probably would have not done it, I would guess. But okay. I was like, I got a doctor with me. Like, what's the worst that can happen?
So there was some sanity there. We see that.
a little bit.
Just a hair. Okay, well, so then that goes back to your perseverance, like your persistence and your perseverance.
Yes, I would say so.
Time frames that you can climb. Is it Kilimanjaro that there's certain time frames, or is that Everest that you can't climb? You can only climb like a certain.
Yeah, I mean, you can. There's times where it's more and less recommended, I would say.
Okay.
So, yeah, I mean, when we got there, I mean, just the whole experience is crazy, man. Like, you're out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, you're hiking literally. I mean, if something goes wrong, you're in the middle of nowhere. You're literally on a mountain in the middle of nowhere. At some point, you get high enough that there's no option for rescue at that point, because helicopters can't come up that high anymore.
Right.
So I think that's the point where it kind of, at least for me, because I'm like, as much as I do this extreme stuff, I'm also like very conscious of like what I'm doing. And I think when the last day when we got, I think it's called Kimbo Camp, I can't remember, but you're at like 17,000 feet, something like that, and it's getting hard to breathe, and your heart's beating really quick all the time.
Right.
And I think at one point when we were there, and they were like, all right, when we've got like 8 more hours up the mountain, and we're gonna leave at midnight tonight, and you're gonna wear a headlamp, and it's freezing cold. And I think at that point I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Sorry to cuss, but that's what that's what was going through my mind. I'm like, arm in a sling, like nowhere near any kind of help, freezing, and so what the heck am I doing up here? Like, this is ridiculous. But
what
it was
got you
great.
to
It
go?
was great.
What got you to go though? Like that to me is when I think about that, that's where you're like, okay, this is something motivated you beyond just, is it just you
And
don't?
I think it was 'cause I was with my buddy and we'd made it that far and he was like all gung ho. And I mean, actually I as well, I ended up getting altitude sickness. So yeah, the whole thing was a mess. So like, it was fun and I loved it and I would probably go do it again. But I mean, I was like dislocated shoulder.
Yeah.
So everything I'm doing hurts all the time. Or I'm sore, I would say. I'm carrying a backpack with a dislocated shoulder because you have to carry your own gear. Or not dislocated, but just pop back
Right,
in
in a
shoulder.
sling. It
Not
was.
and a sling, yeah. And it's freezing cold, and then we start hiking the last night, and I'm getting sick the whole time. So altitude sickness, you start getting like, you start throwing up, you start getting diarrhea, you start getting
I mean, it's a real bad
hallucinating a bit.
issue, right?
Yeah, you get headaches. And so we got like 200 meters from the top, and they have these like blood oxygen. I can't remember what they're called. They have these things, and my oxygen level dropped like really low all of a sudden. And they're like, we got to go back. Like, and I was like, no fucking way.
Right.
I'm like, I can see the top. I was like, you're gonna have to drag me off this mountain. I was like, I don't care if it's just me touching my hand and we go, but we are going. And he's like, it's only 200 meters, but it's an hour and a half. I was like, we're going.
Yeah,
and that was it.
I love it. That's awesome. That's an inspirational story right there. I love it.
Or a stupidity story. I'm not sure if it's inspiring or stupid, but nonetheless, I did it.
Honestly, it's a little bit of both, but that's okay. Exactly. I think any extreme, success comes with a little bit of stupidity and a little bit of luck, right? So
yeah,
we're just gonna call it that. All right. So now, because we all have negative thoughts, right? Because we have 60,000 thoughts a day, and it's proven that 80% of them are negative, which is, I think, horrendous, but it's true, right? Have you overcome a certain limiting belief, or is there one that you can share with us that has helped you be successful? Like you had one and you overcame it?
A limiting belief. I don't know if I had a limiting belief per se. I mean, I'm sure I do, and maybe I do and I don't realize it. But I think one of the things I've done as far as like self-improvement that's helped me the most in the last couple of years is about 4 months ago, I started going to therapy, which was amazing. One of my buddies, this guy, Mckeown, which you may or may not have heard of, he's a really well-known internet marketer, number 30 at Facebook. Okay. And he and I were talking about how he's been going to therapy. I was asking, I was like, man, you always ask great questions. I'm like, you always like, whenever I say something, you have a question back to what I say that's like a very good, like, well, why, or what about that made you feel this way? And I was just like, it's almost like you're a therapist. And he's like, I've been going to therapy for all these years. He's like, so that's probably had a big impact on it. I was like, and what have you found? And he's like, it makes me a good listener. It makes me think about my thoughts and I ask great questions. And I was like, well, I want to try that.
I want to do that.
So I started going to therapy, and I also started. I have like every week I work with this Lama, like Buddhist Lama.
Okay.
This guy named Lama Surya. He was he is considered the highest ranking Buddhist Lama in America. He was like the Dalai Lama's like right hand man. They consider him the ambassador to Buddhism, Western Buddhism, for the Dalai Lama. So I mean, like very high up a Buddhist guy. And every week, I'm so fortunate. I have an hour-long coaching session with him every week.
Wow.
So I would say with him and therapy, what I've learned or gotten better about is just calmness, thinking through problems better rather than reacting to problems quickly. I used to be a very reactive guy rather than proactive in situations. So I've learned a lot to be more calm and proactive in negative situations. So I know that's a limiting belief, but it's the biggest self-improvement thing I've done in the last 4 to 6 months is learning to be proactive, learning to calm and quiet my emotions, and being able to make better, more sound decisions in the face of adversity or the face of negativity.
That is so crucial. You said therapy, and sometimes it gets a bad rap, but I was
just talking about this with my therapist last night. I was saying,
You don't have.
Sorry,
Yeah, go
sorry
ahead.
to cut you off, but yeah, I've been trying to talk about it a lot because exactly that, people give it a bad rap. And I was saying to him the last night specifically, I was in the office and I said to someone, I was like, oh, I got to go to a meeting, but actually I was going to go to therapy. And I was like, screw that. I was like, I'm just going to tell people like more and more. I was like, I go to therapy and it's awesome and I like it. And it's good for me. And I learn a lot about myself in it. I was like, there's no reason to be ashamed of going to learn more about yourself. The problem is people think therapy is, the problem is people suck and people judge. I mean, is what the reality is because why would you judge someone for that? And why would I even? Because I used to judge people for that. I don't mean that people suck, but people are judgmental is the better way to say it. Because like some people go because they were abused. Right. Some people go because they're alcoholics. Some people go because they've got too many negative thoughts, or some people go because they just want to learn more about themselves. And no matter what your reason for going is, I think those are all really respectable reasons going to try to get help, whether it's personal development or whether it's trying to get over something that happened to you or get over an addiction. I think that's like actually an incredibly noble thing of someone to go and do and say, I realize that I need help, or I realize that I can be better. And I think that's a great thing, not a negative thing.
That's perfect. I mean, I think what you said more accurately, rather than people suck, that and in general. So
see, that was the reactivity, not the proactivity. I caught
That's
myself.
exactly right. But we have a tendency as human nature to be judgmental, and if we can just change the idea about therapy, to me, I love that you're passionate about that, because I feel the same way. Is that you don't have to. It's not that you're mentally unstable or crazy to go to therapy. It's good for you. It is good for you. And just make sure you find the right ones that aren't trying to help you, live your story over and over and over. You need to move on from your story and use that story as fuel to make yourself a better person, which, I love that. And I know you have very short amount of time.
I found mine for anyone I just, I asked them if I could be 10 minutes late, and they are saying, okay, I think, so we can go 5-10 more minutes. Okay. But for anyone out there who's thinking about doing it, what I did was, I went on betterhelp.com. That's what I use, is BetterHelp. So I'll give BetterHelp a plug. BetterHelp. I looked through
betterhelp.com, right?
Yep, exactly. Exactly.
I'm going to put that in my show notes.
Yep. And I went through and looked at a bunch of different people that I thought might be good. I messaged a few of them and I got a message back. And the therapist that wrote me back is awesome. And I have a great connection with them. And yeah, it's good. I like it. I highly recommend it.
Comes from this, I think, from which we've already gotten a lot from it, but everyone just understand that if you think for 1 second that you might benefit, you probably will. So go to BetterHelp. I agree. I've been to that before too. I couldn't
imagine besides maybe my wife, because my wife is like Buddha incarnate. Besides my wife, I can't imagine anyone that wouldn't benefit from therapy.
Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with you. And I'm glad we talked about that, because it's not what I expected, but it is so perfect. Okay, so just real quick, because I know we have a few more minutes left, because you got us some extra time, which I love. Is there a book that you love that you think that we should be reading? You're in Thailand, we're in America. America is kind of nuts right now. Is there something that we should be reading that would be awesome?
I'll show you what I'm reading currently, which is, and I'm sure a lot of people have read this book. I've read it before. It's a very good book, but The Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
Okay.
The Emperor's Handbook.
My husband's reading that right now, and I haven't read it. Is it? Should I read it?
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's really good.
Okay, let's read it again.
This version of it's called The Emperor's Handbook. There's different versions of it, but this one I'm reading, I've read a different version before. I'm reading this version right now. I really like this version.
Marcus Aurelius, The Emperor's Handbook. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And then another book is the Lama that coaches me. He's got a book called Awakening the Buddha Within. That's an amazing book. Really, really. That's how I first found him, was I read his book and then found him online. And then for something more business, I would say Let me look. Give me a second. Let me see what I've read or done recently. There's a book called Essentialism. Essentialism is really good. That's a great book.
Okay.
Or Your Brain at Work. That's also a really good book. Brain at Work is pretty awesome. Actually,
I'm
that's really
fascinated by the brain. Okay, when I hear things like this, like I know that I'm gonna order Essentialism and Your Brain at Work, and probably Awakening the Buddha Within, and so I'm pretty excited about that. I love
and
new.
I'll give you a couple random ones. Benjamin Franklin's biography by Walter Isaacson. Napoleon, A Life. That was a really good one. And maybe last, I will go with Good Leaders Ask Great Questions by John C. Maxwell.
Good leaders ask great questions.
There's a few books. I hope that helps.
I always have like 3 or 4 going, and now you've just helped me. I'm probably gonna have like 8 going at one time. All right, so okay, so you seem like you are a happy guy, and I think
Try to be.
Happiness is one of the main ingredients to a wildly successful lifestyle. And if you're not happy, you're not successful, in my opinion. But
I've become more happy over the last few years. I used to be a pretty unhappy guy, I would say.
Okay, well, so what makes you happy? Like, what is it that truly makes you happy?
Well, how do you want to know what makes me happy or what got me to happiness? Which is more interesting to you?
I want to know both. Can you give them both to us?
Yeah. So what got me to happiness was I referred to it slightly or a bit before, which is another great story. I'll try to do the quickest version possible, but basically 3.5 years ago, 4 years ago, my wife was pregnant with our daughter. I had come up to Bangkok. I wasn't drinking much at the time. I was like doing I do 1 to 3 months of no drinking, and I'd go out and drink and have fun with friends, on a weekend or something after 2 or 3 months of not drinking at all.
Mm-hmm.
And I came up to Bangkok and I went out with some friends, and it became this 2-week bender, just totally out of control. Of going out every night, having a couple drinks every night. And I had what's called arterial fibrillation, which is basically something people in their 60s get, which means that it can happen for a number of reasons. But for me, what happened was I was extremely dehydrated because I was going out drinking at night. I was waking up in the morning. I was training for an ultra marathon at the time. So I was waking up in the morning, running 15K, 20K.
Wow.
I was going to the sauna. I was going to sauna in the afternoon, and my body was just hyper dehydrated. I remember the morning that it happened, I woke up and my tongue was swollen in my mouth and felt like a piece of like sandpaper. So anyways, I had this thing happen. And they basically, as it happens, after 8 hours, you're supposed to go in to do defibrillation, like they would do to someone who's doesn't have a heartbeat, because they try to reset your heart, because what's happening is your heart's beating. It's basically having a spasm, and mine was going for 8 hours like that.
Wow.
So 8 hours, 180 BPM, just, which is very uncomfortable in case you're wondering. So they were going to go do either defibrillate me, or they were going to cut me open and do surgery. They can start burning out pieces of your heart to try to get it back on track, basically. Burning out pieces of your heart probably isn't the medical term, by the way. You'll have to Google that.
I'm gonna want to know about that, but I want to hear the rest of the story.
so I'm like, no, my wife's pregnant. If I'm gonna die, because that's where it was at for me.
Oh, wow.
It's 8 hours in. They're like, if you don't get this done soon, you're gonna have a stroke. We're gonna have to defibrillate you. We're gonna have to knock you out. I don't know if it was I don't know if it was actually life or death. Probably not. But it was certainly very serious. Yeah, it was very serious. Very, 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 very serious. Probably my chances of survival obviously were quite good, but it was a life or death situation. And I said no. I said I want to see my wife. And my wife came and jumped into bed with me. And within a few minutes of being, I started bawling. I felt horrible that I'd put myself and her in this situation. And I started crying and was really upset. And she was like, don't worry about it. Just, all that matters is that you're okay, or at least, sort of okay.
Right.
And within 20 minutes of her, my heart, they call it converting. So your arterial fibrillation is erratic rhythm, or you have sinus rhythm. That's what you right now have sinus rhythm, hopefully. Or you probably wouldn't be sitting here. and so within like 10 minutes of being here, my heart converted to sinus rhythm. And the doctors came in. They didn't come in. They were supposed to come in right after got there. They didn't come in. They came in like 2 hours later, and they're like, "How do you feel?" I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "I feel good now." And they're like, "Yeah, like your heart converted." So this all goes back to happiness. So what did that make me realize in this moment was like the power of love, the amazing person that I was lucky enough to have and choose as my partner, my wife.
Wow.
And also that life is really short. I was 35 at the time. I'm almost 40 now. And it was like, shit, man, like this isn't like, life's not forever. Like when you're sitting there in a hospital bed, and I was in CCU, which is coronary care unit. So that's ICU for people with heart problems. I was the youngest guy in there. Everyone in there was dying, including me. And so like when you're faced with this, it makes you realize you're literally confronting death. You're staring death right in the eye. And I think anyone who doesn't change from that, either they have a really great life already, or B, they haven't taken a lesson away from the situation. So that was one that made me realize that right away calmed me down. And then having a daughter, if you don't have children, teaches you patience and love like you can never imagine. My daughter, like one of my friends said to me before I had my daughter, you never know true love until you have a girl, which I had, and I'm so blessed to have had my daughter. And that made things a lot different. And then the last one I would say is like seeing the destruction that laid in the wake of all of the things and my actions of the past, as I got more to this sense of like clarity and calmness and happiness, is like then dealing with like business partners or things I've done in my past that all of a sudden were in my face. And I think that's one of the things that I've learned, or I always say to myself, is like, whatever is happening bad in your life right now isn't a reflection of who you are today. It's a reflection of who you were a week ago, or 2 weeks ago, or a month ago, or 3 years ago. So what's happening right now in your life isn't a result of what you did today normally. It's a result of things that happened months ago. And I think this mentality too kind of like made me realize like everything I'm doing right now is setting my life up for being happy and great 6 months from now or a year from now. So like it makes you be really present, and it also makes you realize like you're investing like goodwill or money or whatever you're doing. Just like you invest money, you need to invest karma and energy and people and things to make sure that 6 months from now life is good and fun. And yeah, it's kind of a long explanation, but I guess those things
beautiful. Like I've gotten goosebumps like 5 times, because what I'm hearing you say is that, for your family is where your happiness and your calmness comes.
100%. Yeah. And surfing.
And surfing. and then also you recognize that you can't control what you've done in the past, but you can control who you are today and who you're going to be tomorrow. And today may be what is it? The circumstance of what you've done, but tomorrow can be the circumstance of what you're doing today. So
yeah, it's like, I think the biggest thing is like all the bad stuff. Like if you really think about it, 99.9% of the time, say for like someone hit my car in the parking lot. Okay.
Right. Mm-hmm.
But even that is a result of you parking there, right? So that for me just like was like a massive mental shift of like, oh, like all this bad stuff I'm experiencing isn't who I am. It's who I was, and like I can choose right now to be someone different. And so if I react differently to this negative stuff that's happening, at least though I might not fix it, I'm like, at least diluting it. It's like event. It's kind of like the logic of event plus reaction equals outcome. Most people think event equals outcome, but it's actually like the event that happens to you plus your reaction equals the outcome. Whereas a lot of people think like someone yelled at me, so I yell back. But actually, your yelling back is the reaction, and that's what creates like the drama. It's not because the person yelled at you. The person who yelled at you, it's not their fault. It's your fault for reacting in a bad way.
That is a wonderful statement, and it's beautifully put. Event plus reaction equals outcome. I haven't heard it put that way. It's basically your thoughts are creating your reality, but put in a different statement. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So event doesn't equal outcome. I love that. It's event plus reaction equals outcome. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, awesome. Well, this has been so good. I have other questions, but I know you have to go, and maybe we'll do this. It's too much fun. I love everything we came up with today. It was kind of, how you go into something and you're like, I'm not sure what to expect, but I loved how it turned out. So thank you.
Awesome. Well, I hope everyone listening takes away something from this, and feel free to hit me up on Instagram or Facebook or wherever you crazy people hang out.
How do we find you? Like, where is the best place for us to follow you, get to hear you? Because your Instagram and your Twitter are amazing, like good stuff. So tell us how to find you.
I would say Instagram at Edmund Lowman or YouTube Edmund Lowman. So on my YouTube, I interview a lot of pretty cool people, and I put out some entrepreneurial type instructional or motivational or like how-to videos probably about once a week. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll put all of that in
Instagram or YouTube.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to put that in my show notes, and we'll hopefully maybe we'll do this again. I loved it.
Sounds great.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wonderful night.
Thank you, Heidi. It was wonderful, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. Have a good day.
You too. Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.